Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Beyond the Stage. My name is Ruth Eggerman. I am the Director of Marketing here at Livermore Valley Arts, and I'm with our host and Chief Executive Officer, Chris Carter.
Hey
Say hi,
Ruth,
Chris. How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm good. You and I just, for our audience, we just spoke with Suzanna Spring, Sherry, and Aubrey from Mustangs of the West, and they'll be here on July 25th at 8 p.m. And I think that's a Friday night. Is that correct?
Yes, he'll be here
Okay.
Friday night.
Yeah, that one's going to be a good one. For those of you who don't know, Susanna Spring is a Livermore resident. I don't think she's a native, but she is kind of. She's lived here for a long time.
Yep.
And so it's great to have somebody come in who's got those local roots, and it's really kind of fun. She's also a yoga instructor as well
Hmm.
over at Dragonfly. Does she own Dragonfly? That I don't know, but I know she teaches over at Dragonfly for sure.
I don't
Um,
know.
it was such a full conversation and
We didn't
really
even get to
interesting.
that.
Yeah, we didn't even get to all of her like local roots and
Yeah.
such because they had a lot to say, and the conversation was really interesting and engaging, and it was a lot of fun to see them interact with each other as well. You can tell they have a good, strong band and a great relationship, and
Hmm.
it comes out on stage as well. So that was a lot of fun. Uh, I had an interesting weekend. I'm not sure we have time to actually talk about it, so maybe we'll bring it up on the next podcast that we record. Because this one is actually a little bit longer interview, but really from beginning to end, very interesting.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved talking about songwriting. And Sherry and I geeked out on guitars for a little
Oh yeah.
bit. And I think we might need to bring her back just to do a guitar show. Um,
On her own
maybe a few.
or on
Yeah,
a
maybe.
podcast. A
Yeah, for a
podcast based on,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, that's sorry, a guitar podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
we could invite a number of the guitarists that we've spoken
yeah,
to and bring
yeah.
them in and have some fun. You could have a lot of fun talking about guitars, and
Yeah,
maybe I'll learn something or two.
well, me too. I'd love to learn more. So I feel like as much as I think I know, there's a lot you don't know.
Right,
Like with most things in life. And she she said she had more guitars than she knew or could count.
right.
So that was uh, somebody I want to
S-
pick their
s-
brain.
So is the number of guitars always n plus one that you should have?
Uh, yeah, I mean, sometimes you get one and you go, okay, this is my last one, but it's not really,
Right.
um, for
That's
sure.
what cyclists say. It's like the number of bikes you should have is n plus one, n being the number you currently have.
Right.
So,
I'm always one
uh,
short.
yep, there's always one more to get that you
Yeah.
need for a certain thing. And it was interesting because Sherry was definitely talking about it's hard to choose which guitars to bring when she's out on the road or going to a show or
Hmm.
something because they all bring a different sound and bring a different vibe to and she probably plays them differently in some way depending on her affinity towards them, right? Do you
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. It kind of depends what mood you're in, is what you'll
Yeah,
pick up. Some guitars have six strings, some have 12, some are tuned differently than others. And
yeah.
I actually have, the ones behind me, there's a couple more that you can't see just off screen. So I have about 10 right here within arm's reach,
When
and they're
was the
all
last time
different.
when was the last time you got a new guitar?
A couple months ago.
Yeah. Of course, of course. And then you have some in your office too,
I do.
here at the Bankhead. So that's kind of funny. Well,
Yeah.
I want to invite everybody to stay tuned for this interview. It's really fun. They're a great group of women, and I think you're going to really love it. And then you're going to want to come see the show for sure. Again, it's on Friday, July 25th at 8 p.m. You can get your tickets at livermorearts.org or by calling the box office at 925-373-6800. Please enjoy the interview.
Where the Bankhead is now used to be a used car lot.
No, really?
Yes.
So
And there
hard to
was
imagine that.
There was a grocery store across the street, a Lucky grocery store, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
think you're. I guess Lucky wasn't so lucky. There are no more Luckies.
no,
There's still some
Nevermore.
in Livermore.
there's a few.
There's actually
Yeah.
two in Livermore.
Well, I got to ask, by the way, so there's a Suzanne and a Susanna in the band. Is that confusing?
It is. I mean,
For other
Suzanne.
people,
I'm
mostly.
Susanna, and our drummer is French Canadian, Suzanne
Hmm.
Morissette, Morissette Cruz. So I kept trying to ask her if she wanted to go by a different name, but both of us have been too stubborn to change. So we just,
Maybe do you go by O Susanna?
I
Is
don't
that
Oh.
actually, or banjo. No. Thank you for saying the joke that everyone says.
sorry, way too obvious.
Where's the
He
banjo on
couldn't
your knee?
resist.
Yeah, where's
Right,
the
like
don't
in a band situation, I'll go, "Hey, Suze," and both of them look up. So that doesn't
right?
work either. There no nicknames seem to be, um, you know, for one and not the other. They seem to.
Hmm.
Yeah, you kind of got all the usual things.
Well, y'all will just have to duke it out at some point and
Yeah.
just decide.
Yeah, we don't really do a lot of nicknames in this band.
No,
No.
But maybe for the best.
have y'all had have y'all had nicknames in other bands then?
In the distant past, usually it's just some variation of your name
Yeah.
that someone thinks they're coming up with for the first time, and you don't want to tell them, well, actually, someone else thought
Every
about it.
band you've been in, yeah.
Okay, so Suzanne is the drummer. Is that
Yes,
what you just said? And
yes.
then Sherry, what's your instrument?
Guitar.
Guitar. And then Aubrey.
Fiddle and mandolin mainly.
Okay, fiddle and mandolin. And then Susanna, what
Acoustic guitar.
acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And you all sing, is that correct?
We all sing. Yeah.
Is there a lead singer or do you take turns?
Uh, I'll sing most of the set, and but we change it up. I mean, Holly, our bass player, who's on the road right now, sings. Aubrey sings. Suzanne, our drummer, sings. So we
Yeah.
actually are really lucky. We've got many strong lead vocalists in the band, and then everybody harmonizes. So we feel like one of the things that's the signature sound for us are 3 to 4 part harmonies. Whoever is singing lead, the rest of us will back them. And that just kind of elevates everything. I mean,
Is
it's,
that hard to do? To have the four of you all do different part while you're singing and playing an instrument at the same time?
no, really.
Or
I mean, I guess Aubrey could speak to that too, but I feel like usually that part of it comes together pretty quickly. And unless it's a complex solo part, I mean, Aubrey can probably talk about that more because she does a lot of solo violin work in the band.
Well, with violin, it's a little different because, I've always, most players would tend to alternate between what they're playing and what they're singing. It's not like where you would strum a rhythm guitar or play rhythm bass or drums while singing at the same time. So usually just because of where the instrument is and because of the part of the brain that it uses, you kind of have to like make quick back and forth
Mhm.
adjustments. But I think for most of us, we've been singing so long, and some of us have choir backgrounds, and so we're already used to harmonizing. So it's a fairly natural process that isn't going to throw us off once we've kind of settled in and worked out a part, which we tend to
Mhm.
do. We're recording a record, and then once we go to do the live show, you're just kind of reviewing and like kind of solidifying what you worked out as an arrangement for the recording.
Yeah, but I feel like you're selling yourselves a little short because it's
Yeah,
not
really
easy
hard
because
to do, and very few people in the world can.
right.
But you forget that because it's just normal, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I
you're
always
and
say
you're
it's the hardest for a drummer because
Yes.
yeah.
they've got their whole physicality going into playing different rhythms than the actual than the rhythm they're singing. Yeah, than the
Yeah.
rhythm they're singing and the lyrics require. So always, I always, have extra admiration for drummers who sing. I mean, Don Henley did it.
Yeah.
Phil Collins,
Phil
yeah.
Collins,
Phil
Ringo.
Collins.
But
Yeah.
there aren't as many singing drummers as there are, singing, other instruments.
Yeah.
That can go for bass too. I know there's some
Oh, that's true.
weird bass line, right? It's like I
Ah,
don't even know how to
right.
sing over this bass line, but
You're so right.
I have met, I think one of the things though, if you're like doing something that you've worked out, like you've rehearsed it already, or it's like a rhythmic part that's consistent that loops, it can kind of be on autopilot a little bit, and there's less
Yeah.
memory. And then it's easier. It's easier to also sing while doing something like that. But I've kind of found over time that whatever part of my brain I'm using to like find harmonies, if I haven't already just got it down, is the same part of my brain I'm using to like think of like play the next feel.
Hmm.
And so because it's both kind of drawing from the same creative part of the brain, they kind of run into each other and they override. So it's like I can't do both of these at the same time.
Yeah, most
Well,
people, well, even if you're a solo instrument, if you're the singer on that song, you'll be playing a more rhythmic part while you're
yeah.
singing. I mean, if you have our CDs and listen, I was just thinking that's true to a certain extent for rhythm guitar. There's a song on there, Blue Rodeo, that has a very syncopated picking part. And I, that for me required some practice to sing over that part because
Hmm.
hand is doing one thing, no, the lyric, the rhythm of the words is doing another thing. So, but drumming, certainly that's the ultimate because there's so many polyrhythmic things that are going on, and then you add singing into the mix. It just, those kinds of things are doable with, repetition and practice.
Yeah, well, I would say too, on top of all that, you're trying to perform too, right? You're engaging with the audience. And so are you thinking about that too while you're on
No, at
stage?
that point, you just have, I think those that we practice to the point where it's then a non-thinking thing.
I see.
You're not thinking about what is the next thing because you're thinking about the emotion of the song. But that's
Hmm.
only because you get the rest of it into muscle memory, if that makes sense. And then it's not a thinking thing. It's like being in a
Yeah.
play where you don't have to think of what the next line is.
Can you talk a little bit about the emotion of that song? So, do you ever get carried away in it?
I think for me as a when lead singer, the struggle for me is that yeah, if the song is really emotional for me, then it I and probably every vocalist has this. There's a balance between letting it be so emotional that you can't sing it, or that your voice cracks, or that what you bring out to the audience changes, and
Hmm.
so you have to, I always have to balance that with a performance of the song. So I know if it means something to me, it'll mean something to somebody else. I mean,
Yeah.
and as a writer, I there was a great expression in Nashville, if it's personal, it's universal. And I found that so true with
Yeah.
songs. If it connects your own heart, it's going to mean something to someone else. But because it's a performance, there's also the the part of yourself that you have to give to bringing that out into the audience and not let it just be consuming you as an interior experience that becomes so emotional that you're not carrying it across the stage to the audience.
Have has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
I feel like I know when it's at that edge where, um, well, the quality of what I'm bringing out to the audience, I is being affected by what I feel with the song. So in the best of the best, music reminds me of what I think athletes experience when they're in a zone where it doesn't
Hmm.
feel like it's analytical and it doesn't feel like it's anything but time getting slowed down and effortless. So that's when you know that you've hit that spot.
So it's like being in the moment.
Yes, and
So
it's
you,
a
you
long
really want
wide
to,
moment.
yeah, you
Yeah.
really want to get into the moment that you're in and not necessarily think about the emotion of it or anything and just let
Well,
it all come
yeah,
out.
you're exactly right. The emotion
Yeah,
is just there and the moment expands.
right.
I think
And
there's been
then
some.
and then all of a sudden your whole set's over and you're like, wow, that was
That was
Yeah,
amazing.
that
yeah,
was
I think we've
great.
all had that experience.
Engaging
That's
with
how I feel after like when I'm swimming or something and working
Yes.
out. I'm like, and it just and those moments when you just really get into it and then you're all of a sudden like, oh my God, a half hour has passed. I didn't even know. And
Hmm.
that's really kind of that's always a great place to be. So it sounds like that same kind of thing happens when you're performing, especially when you're performing, right? Or
Yes.
that's the place you want to get to. Not necessarily that it happens all the time, but
Yeah, the time seems to shift.
Right.
I don't know if it's like this for everyone. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think, but I've noticed for myself personally that if I connect to another person, whether it's on stage or off stage, I tend to disconnect from whatever I'm doing. So like if I'm in the middle like of a solo, since I usually have an idea of what I want to play or I've learned it mostly, and then I'm just like, I'm just gonna riff. But if I start like engaging with someone else, I drop the ball on, it's like I can kind of, I can't do both at the same time.
Oh,
Or if I look out at the audience and engage with someone while I'm singing, I might forget the lyrics because all of a sudden my whole focus is shifted and
you've
it's
made a connection. Oh,
and
that's
drop.
interesting.
I'll drop
Yeah,
one. So I tend to do the look over the heads kind of move into the light or the dark.
Right. That helps when it's all dark
That's
in the theater, dark in the venue. I'm sure not all the venues we play in are dark like that, but
Right,
I know in our
especially
theater, when you're on stage, you can barely, if the house lights
mhm.
are down,
yeah.
you can't really
Well,
see
We've
anybody.
talked about
um, Aubrey, I promise not to wave at you while you're doing a performance. I'll be perfectly still.
It's all right. I just won't make eye contact.
But
She'll make
what,
pretend eye contact.
well, you know,
Forehead
it's
contact.
interesting because I was in Nashville a couple months ago just on a trip with my wife, and we saw a ton of shows, and my wife loves country music. I also love country music, but not all country music. But there was something about
we're the same.
yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, you know, I like we went to the not the where did we go?
Bluebird.
No, we didn't go to the Bluebird. We went to this other one where it was the songwriters talking about their songs. Um, Listening room, I think, is what it was called.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I just love that with country, especially country music specifically, it's a lot about the lyric and the narrative and the story. And you know, the music can be great, but it's not the song's not great unless the words are great. And and there's something about country music specifically, like, and maybe you could all speak to this, is first of all, why is it so sad all the time? But why is it that the story is so important and the lyrics are so important?
I think because those songs started out as very personal stories, and you know they might, when you think about Hank Williams, they might have a jumpy beat to go with it, but they were all personal experiences. And I
Hmm.
think where that music comes from a lot of personal experience. And originally, you know, a lot of it came from Appalachian folk music and some from the blues, and all of that was it, there's a bittersweet quality to it, or sometimes a mournful quality to it, you know, that comes out of an era and a time and a group of people for which life was hard. And so I think certainly country music's gotten bigger and slicker, and you know, lots of other influences come in. But uh, in the pyramid of recording a song, that I think one engineer, George Landers, said it great, and he said the lyric is at the top, and the song, the lyrics and the voice are at the top of that pyramid, and everything else
Hmm.
is built around it. And that's especially true for country music. You know, when you work as a writer in Nashville, the lyrics are really valued. You know, there might be a great guitar riff that is totally a signature for the song, or a fiddle riff, but the lyrics are king. The
Yeah.
story, and it has to be a compelling story. I mean, the best songs, if you think of
Well,
songs like gosh, The Dance, Garth Brooks, Tony Rada,
Yeah.
those songs move you because it's a great melody, but it's also a wonderful story
Yeah.
that most people can relate to.
Well, I think also I grew up just falling in love with singer-songwriters, when Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, Paul Simon, all these writers were, um, the focal point of music for a while. And it was like I was completely drawn into that. And, I grew up kind of listening to rock and roll, but then I got into, folk rock and country rock. But it was the songs and these songwriters that uh,
Yeah.
just really drew me in. And, I felt really connected. But then as rock and roll became rock music, and and a lot of it got focused on, and less focused on lyrics, let's put it that way. And it was more like the overall sound and really loud guitars and really, it was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I disliked it, but I kind of disconnected from that until there was a resurgence in country music, like especially like the late 80s, when the traditionalist country music came around, and suddenly we had, Garth Brooks recording these incredible songs. We had, people like Roseanne Cash and Rodney Crowell and Mary Chapin Carpenter
Hmm.
writing these incredible lyrics. And all of a sudden, even though I grew up not liking country music because I thought it was just really hokey and it wasn't my thing. Suddenly, I wanted to play country music, and I fell in love with the genre because what it was putting out, what it was going through at that time.
Yeah.
So now it's a little different,
Well,
a lot different.
it's
But
always evolving, but
yeah,
it seems like the country music is the one of the genres that can really, if you want a good cry, listen to a country song, right?
Oh,
Uh,
sorry. I was going to say, I don't know that I have much to add to what they've said because they've covered it. But one of the things that I've come across in songwriting is that decision you have to make. Kind of, am I going to start the song from a lyric place, which is what I tend to do, being a writer naturally. You start with lyrics. The lyrics usually come from a feeling, right?
yeah.
And when I get a feeling, that feeling generally goes to words first. And then when I think about the difference between country and other genres like pop or rock, I just think, some people start with a lyric, some people start with a riff or a beat or
Yeah.
the emotion, and they look to like, I'm going to try to get a sound or a beat to match this emotion, or I'm trying to evoke a feeling, or this is just my idea. And then that is like the most important thing. And you're going to build a song and lyrics around that, but they're going to serve like whatever your starting point was. Whereas with a country song, I feel like they said it's coming from life experience. You have a story to tell, and now what is the vehicle by which I tell this story? Will it could be slow, it could be fast. What are the chords? Maybe there's three, maybe there's four, but it's just a more, kind of a more simple art form in that way. But I just think of it kind of like, where are you starting from?
Do you all write songs?
Hmm.
Do you write
Yeah.
together?
I have before.
We have done some. We haven't done, I think, as much as we've wanted to do because we live in different places. And we were talking about that. Gosh, who was I talking about that with yesterday? Keith, Peter Asher's manager, when we did Breakfast at the Beatles. Aubrey plays with Peter Asher and his that 60s music retrospective, great show. And he was asking me that, and I think the people can send lyrics back and forth, and a lot of writers do it that way if they're not in the same room. But there's something to be said for sitting down together and the ideas just bouncing back and forth in the room. I mean, in Nashville, where writing is such an industry, or your publisher would book you writing appointments that kind of matched the studio demo schedule. So you could write from 10 to 2, 2 to 6,
Hmm.
6 to 10, things like that. And they would pair you. It's a big co-writing town because then you have two publishing companies to pitch a song, more people working the song. But that idea of being able to sit down in the room with someone, and pretty much every writer in Nashville has a journal, a book. I thought it was funny at the time they call them hook books, but they would just keep ideas, like an idea book.
Yeah.
It might be a title, it might be a chorus. And if you get together and sit down with another writer, you bring your ideas and then see what evolves from there. And the best of the best, it's an easy write and things will come together. Usually know when you feel like you've got some synergy with that person sitting across from you. And I feel like the more people do that, then the more that builds.
I was saying, it sounds so odd to me to set an appointment to
Yeah.
write. So do you just get used to it, or is that why you carry around your hook book, and so
I,
that when you
it
go
was
and you actually sit down with somebody, you have someplace to start?
it was funny to me when I first got there because I think all of us come probably originated from a solo writer standpoint, sitting in your room, playing guitar, piano, and writing. So that was all new to me, that it was such a system when I got to Nashville. But I see that it was valuable because just like you make an appointment to practice your sport or your instrument, you're consistently doing it then, and your brain is used to, I'm going to take this time and this is going to be my creative time, whether you're a book writer or a songwriter. I think that kind of discipline builds your kind of muscle for
Yeah.
creative
Yeah.
muscle for being able to put that time to good use and do it. I mean, that's not to say that we all get ideas at midnight and we all get ideas when we least expect it, but then those are ideas you can take into something and create a song.
I'm an expert at the half-written song.
Well, we interviewed for this podcast JD Souther
Oh yeah.
before he passed away.
That's
And
right.
he actually, Aubrey, he said the hardest part for him about writing a song was was making sure the rest of the song equaled what he had at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's usually that first idea is the best one. And then how do you carry that through the whole song for him was always the challenge, but seemed pretty good at it.
Yeah, but I remember the first time I met him was first and maybe only time I met him was I was playing with this band very briefly, at least a decade ago. It was a long time ago. And I only did a couple shows with them, but they opened for him at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. And I have a picture, like me and JD against the wall. He had that same expression he kind of always has on his face. But I mean, talk about like trying it, especially with someone who's had success in songwriting and worked with the best and had your songs cut by the Eagles. Like, it's like, even in his show, like Peter talks about it when they first had their first hit as Peter and Gordon, the big buzz was like, after number one single, after the pop puzzle is after their success, how can they top this? Like, how are they going to do better than this song and get another hit,
That when you talk about half-finished songs, a lot of times that's how the song comes. It might be a chorus. You get a great melody and you get a great chorus lines, and then, well, what are the verses going to be? What's the story going to be? I mean, we'll play T-shirt from California, but I remember where I was in Nashville in my room, feeling morose on my couch, writing the chorus for that song just coming, and then that was what I took into a session. I wrote that song with Wes Hightower, who's a session singer and a good writer, but that's how we talked about the verses and what the verse melody might be, and came up with the idea, well, it would be a kind of a melodramatic Midwest melodrama about someone being abandoned and their significant other goes to California. But that initially I had the chorus to that song, and the chorus ended with, I've got this T-shirt, so on, and then but she's got your heart. When I played it for Sherry, and the name of the song was She's Got Your Heart, and she said, no, you got the title all wrong. That song is called T-shirt from California, and so we even took back to the publisher and did also known as, and changed the title. She was right. And so having somebody else's perspective on it sometimes is just that spark that changes everything for a song.
That doesn't hurt your ego too much when you're
she was
working with
right.
somebody?
No, because if I hadn't agreed with her, I mean, I think I wouldn't have gone through with it and pushed for that change. But no, when something is better and right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because this particular She's Got Your Heart versus T-shirt in California or from California, right? Like they evoke different images in your head. So for me, I'd be like, well, what is this song about? I want to hear this just based on the title when you say T-shirt from California.
Right.
It's like it's just a different imagery that comes up.
Yeah, it was funny too because it wasn't you. You didn't think immediately, oh, you're right about that. I mean, we had discussions about it, and one of the other I don't know, selling points was that I, did research, and there were all these songs called "She's Got Your Heart."
Oh,
And I
yeah.
knew it wouldn't stand out. I knew it would get lost in the mix, but there was no other song titled T-shirt from California. So in all ways it seemed to make sense, and
Yeah.
we ended up agreeing on that.
Sherry is a natural researcher, by the way.
You need one of those in the
Also
band.
a natural, she's the talented promoter in the band.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah,
That's
and
funny.
T-shirt from California is the first line of the chorus. She's Got Your Heart is the last line. So what you hear every time you hit the chorus
Got a
is
T-shirt from
the
California.
title.
The first
Yeah.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat of an amateur songwriter, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I have a friend that writes with me, and we've been doing it since I just turned 50, and we started doing this together when we were 19.
Oh
Wow.
my
And
gosh, I have a lot of songs.
yeah, we do. But we're also brutal to each other at this point because we appreciate each other's viewpoints. And so, but I know what it's like when you feel like, God, this is such a great line, and he's like, no, that sucks.
You're also being male will help with that.
Yeah,
You're kind
yeah,
of deflated at first, huh? But
yeah. But we all say the same thing to him. I said that was really lazy. You could do better. So it's I love that process.
well, and also
It's
the fact that you have had that kind of longevity writing with him shows that there's something there that really works.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's usually I think know pretty early on if it's going to be like that.
Yeah. And speaking of like half-written songs, like I remember it took me 10 years to write one song, maybe more, because you kind of had the beginnings of it, and then I had to be older before I could write the end of it, and have a different
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
experience.
I've literally woken up or had a dream about a part, like a melodic change in a song that I haven't worked on for like 10 years. I mean, that kind of weird stuff happens.
I love that.
Like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Yeah, there's songs that literally had like a 10+ year trajectory because you start them and then you
Yeah.
come back around, you're like, yes.
Yeah, and your perspective is different.
Yeah.
So,
It's not the best way to earn a living as a songwriter.
No.
no,
But what's
earning a living as a songwriter, it's just you have writing a lot. I mean, when you have your publisher usually asks you for 10 full songs, 12 full songs a year is
Mhm.
typical contract, or it was when I was there. So if you have a co-write, you have a writer, you have to have 24. If you bring in someone else, you have to have 36.
Wow.
Really?
But most
Wow.
people so overwrite. I mean, that people would write 100 songs a year. Some people would just keep throwing songs at the dartboard because it was a numbers game. The more
Yeah.
if you're a good writer, the better your odds that you'll write something and someone will pick it up, or you'll write a hit.
Well, do y'all have any with your writing? Do you have any like influences that you kind of that speak to you, or anybody that you aspire to be like, or maybe that has inspired you as you write? Who are your favorite songwriters?
Gosh, I moved to Nashville because I heard Steve Earle's Copperhead Road album. And
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons, I loved his writing. I loved his lyrics. I liked what he talked about in the songs. And I also thought, if country music production can sound like this, then that's for me.
Yeah.
Some of it sounded like bagpipes on that was just more of a rock
Great
production, true country rock. And then the ballads were totally spare. Probably growing up in music, I've always loved Lucinda Williams. I'm an
Mhm.
absolute fan. Rock music. I mean, I loved Fleetwood Mac. So I guess thinking about the songs, but also the whole sound of the band. But I think a lot of us start out writing poetry, maybe bad poems, and then those poems get better. And if we play an instrument, then that naturally the melodies come. And I think most of us grew up either listening to the radio or listening to records that influenced who we are. But I always liked country music that had a bit of a rock edge or a folk edge to it.
When we started the Mustangs, I think that's probably why Suzanna and I connected, because we had been listening to similar genres, writers. We were kind of had kind of fallen in love with the same kinds of music.
Yeah, Robbie Robertson.
Yeah, that we wanted to play. Yeah, so
Jackson Brown.
Yeah, Jack, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I would, for myself, I remember just growing up listening to songs, never thinking about, anything beyond, oh, this is the artist that did that song, right? And after coming to LA and then meeting a songwriter, who encouraged me, if you're going to start, if you ever record your own record, it would help to like, who are the producers, who are the writers, what what draws you to something. And so I started researching, like making lists of all my favorite songs and finding out who wrote them. And one of the interesting things for me is that over the years in LA, being a session player and going and recording on many other people's demos and albums over the last couple decades now, I guess, is that I've met some of my favorite songwriters because, well, you tell one of your friends, oh, I love this song. And they're like, oh, I know the guy who wrote that. Let's go write with him. Right. And that, or you end up in the studio with someone and go, oh my gosh, you wrote this song for this person. Like, a good example would be, I was listening to Linda Ronstadt catalog and I love that song, Love Has No Pride. You're familiar. And I ended up playing on a song for the writer of that song. His name is Kaz, like amazing writer. We worked with JD and the Eagles. And so it's, I don't know. I'm just a big fan of a great song. And it's just, I think how it hits you. I mean, everyone's going to have different reasons for falling in love with a song and why it resonates with them,
How about you, Chris? Just curious.
My favorite songwriters.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a teenager, I really loved REM a lot. So Michael Stipe, I liked his style. I love Elvis Costello.
Yep.
I grew up in Austin, so I'm a big Willie Nelson fan. And
Great writer.
later on discovered guys like Towns Van Zandt, Blaze Foley. I really love their songwriting. But yeah, lots of different artists. The Eagles, obviously, all their songs are great.
Hey, I admit it. Tom Petty.
Tom Petty, excellent songwriter.
I don't think he's written a bad song in
No.
his career.
Yeah,
and always that, because he was Southern, he managed to kind of straddle that line of country influence, but completely a rock edge and a rock sound.
Yeah. Somebody told me once the saddest song ever written was "He Stopped Loving Her Today," and I think that's George Clark.
George Jones sang it, right?
George Jones, yes, thank you. Sorry,
George Clark had written it. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember who wrote it. But thinking about like how country music really does evoke more emotion, I think, than other genres. Most other genres is really has drawn me to the songs and the songwriting of the country musicians quite a bit.
Yeah, Towns is a great example.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a brilliant songwriter, and also Jimmy Dale Gilmore. Have always been a fan of his. And so angelic in the songs, but that whole group, the Flatlanders and all those writers that came out of Odessa, that in itself has its own sound, which is so very different than Nashville. But they're compelling writers. Yeah, they do "Lonely" just as well as anybody, and a different part of the South.
How would you describe the Mustangs sound and your style? And speaking of songwriting, or are there any themes that come up for you as you come up with your music?
I think originally the Mustangs we were probably primarily love songs or love and loss songs, and I think over the years we wrote a song called "Everybody Wants Peace on Earth," which is more of a universal song. Our label often every year tasks all the label artists with writing something for a Christmas album that'll be, and it can be anything. They don't give many guardrails, but it's something. Then the proceeds will go to a charity. Sometimes it becomes an album or a double album, and everyone will contribute. So we wrote that song in the desert during July, but it wasn't. In some ways, it wasn't typical for the Mustangs. It was more of a universal message about that the personal becomes universal. And if you really want to make a difference, you have to start with your own family. You know, a lot of people talk about wanting peace and world peace, but that's something that you can start just with your own relations with your family. And we sort of had in mind the Happy Christmas, War is Over, the John Lennon song,
Hmm.
just as an idea, but ours, I think, started very personal and then a wider scope. I think a lot of our music still love and loss, and we get compared a lot to like female Poco or female Eagles. That
Hmm.
in terms of that sound, just because of the instruments and because we all sing, so the way we can change up voices and also layer lots of harmonies. But right now, I think we do straddle that country rock edge. We're not a bluegrass band. Some of our music is folk based. Some of it, Aubrey sings a song that Sherry and I wrote, "Bad for Each Other," but we always have a good time. That's very blues based in
Hmm.
a lot of ways, 12-bar blues, and totally
It's so
rock.
it's so fun.
Yeah, that's amazing on it.
Rock.
Well, aren't you all like kind of a Southern California country? I mean, that's a whole style right there, right? If you think about that, and there's a lot of influences in country music from Southern California. I mean, do you kind of feel like that's your
Yeah,
lane a little bit?
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
I think we're, Graham Parsons, Birds, all of that jangle pop influence. I mean, Sherry's playing to me has a lot of that influence that defines our sound.
I sneak
Hmm.
a 12 string anytime I can.
Yeah.
Like yesterday when we did breakfast with the Beatles, it was like, okay, I'm bringing one guitar. I'm bringing,
So
Sher
fun.
Sherry, how many guitars do you have, by the way?
too many.
Have we counted lately?
You know what? I actually stopped counting because it was kind of an embarrassment. But some are wall guitars, some are
Yeah.
cowboy guitars. Um, uh, I wish I had more time to play more of them. I mean, I started out as a classical guitar player, and
Hmm.
beautiful Guild classical, and then I got from this company that ended up this ESP guitars down it turned out it was down the street, and they have a beautiful, basically solid body nylon string guitar.
Hmm.
It's they gave it to me at cost, and it's exquisite, and I've never played it with the band. I'd love to do that sometime, but it's also hard to decide which guitars then to take to a gig, because for me, I'm not a flashy player, I'm a melodic player, and then it's also about the sounds for me, different sounds. And I try and do that now more with pedals, but I can't bring all those guitars to a gig, so the poor classicals don't get played much.
Oh,
I found an old video of our original band when we were playing at the Palomino, and I was playing a nylon string
yeah.
classical guitar for one of our songs, and it sounded great, and I missed playing it, but there's just not.
And we all had terrible hair.
Well, we
Is
did.
the Palomino here in Livermore?
No, in
No?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, because there's a Palomino here too.
Oh,
Yeah, no, Los Angeles. They're doing a documentary about it now,
Yeah.
called Palomania, and it looks like they've made progress. They actually have a
Yeah.
record. It's gonna
In your collection, Sherry, do you have a favorite guitar? Like your number one?
Well, it
Like if there
changed.
was a fire in your house, which one would you grab?
Oh, that's very interesting because, down here, I mean, unfortunately, we had the fires in January, and they didn't come to my area here,
Hmm.
but there was a chance of anything happening for a while because they were popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I actually did pack up my car and leave for a couple of days. And it was like, oh my God, what guitars am I taking? That's a very good question. So yeah, I could only, after two cats, all my camera gear, personal stuff, whatever, I could only take three guitars, all my hard drives. So I took my Telecaster, which
Hmm.
is it's a 77 Tele that I play mostly with it. And honestly, right now I can't remember which the other two, because it was really hard. It was whichever two fit at that point, which I had very little room. So, but I'd probably take one of these,
Yeah.
one of these airline guitars because they're so cool.
They are super cool.
So, but when we had the original band, we also had it was amazing. We got an endorsement from G&L Guitars, and I still have
Mhm.
my G&L ASAT, which probably is worth more than any of these guitars now.
Wow.
And I also have, my mom bought me when I was a kid. I know I had some really shitty guitar first, but then she bought me, we got a used Fender Jazzmaster. And,
Yeah.
and I've got, I have that in the closet. That would be a big loss, but
And most of it, well, you can see the walls. Well,
yeah,
Mhm.
might as well,
everything.
but most everything. Sherry's house is blue, and most of her guitars are blue.
Mhm.
We
Okay.
actually have a video
Blue,
and song
green.
we wrote called "How Blue,"
Yeah.
and
we-
everybody's playing blue instruments.
That's right.
Oh,
I've
you're a
stretched
woman
a
after
little
my
bit.
own heart. I love blue.
I've stretched a little bit to the seafoam green.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's a
But
great
I like
guitar.
that one.
Listen.
Yeah.
yeah. So
I was telling Sherry when she first came on that those airlines, the design is, I'm not sure if it was intentional. I think it might have been. It looks a little bit like the outline of the United States of America if you look at
yeah, I never thought of
the
No.
that.
design of the guitar.
I just think it looks like
Oh.
such an Art Deco piece.
Yeah,
And they play well. They're really nice guitars.
yeah.
I love how happy guitars make Sherry. Like
Yeah.
when
Chris-
she talks about
Chris-
a guitar, she is just lit up.
Chris is the same
I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
You
We-
could see his wall of guitars.
We
and-
could do another podcast, Sherry,
Yeah.
just you and me and guitar
Oh,
talk.
you should actually show and tell.
Yeah,
Getting out.
There'd be a lot of people who would watch that.
yeah. When I went to Nashville this last time, the first place we went was Carter Vintage Guitars, and it's not my place, but I like that my name is on it, and
Yeah,
pretty cool.
and you've been
spot.
to Gruen, probably that place too. Guitars in
Gruen
Nashville.
is unbelievable.
Oh,
But the prices are
Yes.
unbelievable.
I know, but even
Yeah,
the building
it's
is cool.
crazy.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you go here in a minute, but I do have, unless Ruth, is there anything else you want to talk about?
And is-
Do you feel
Yeah.
like that you have within the industry that there is continued impact based on the fact that you're an all-female band versus, an all-male band or a male band with a female musician or vocalist or something like that? Do
Well,
you
if
think
you
that the
look
industry accepts you in the same way?
I mean, in country music, I think we can all speak for that because we certainly we had, managerial interest. And then there was a while ago a all-female band that got signed in Nashville, Wild Rose, but and they played their instruments. That's still rare. I mean, I
Really
hate
rare.
to say, but that still is really rare. And I think we
Yeah.
also still get that, you play your own instruments. And I like to think when we get out there and play, like we have played the Bankhead in the past, if there's even one, young person, a young woman, a girl, teenager who will come up and see that there's a female drummer, there's a rockin' electric guitar player, though there's this band is not, a female singer backed by men, or that I still think that's rare enough, that certainly way better than it used to be. But I still want to feel like we inspire young musicians just by the fact that we're doing it.
Yeah, I think so too. It's I think a much longer discussion, but the landscape has changed a lot in a lot of ways since we first started the Mustangs. And the group that she's talking about, Wild Rose, I mean, they broke up years ago, and I don't think anyone's come along in Nashville as far as an all-female band that's taken their place. They were there, we were here, we were in LA. Suzanna was in LA at the time. But the landscape has really changed though as far as female musicians. I mean, it used to be, it was hard to find a female guitar player. Or when we first had the band, oh my God, we have to change bass players. How are we going to find another bass player?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's also due to the music schools. There are so many female musicians coming out of the music schools, heading the music departments, all instruments. And I mean, you look at, I think is it Beyonce? I mean, having an entirely female band backing her. There are so many female rock players, and but in country music, I still haven't. I see individual players. I mean, a lot of the major artists are opening up their stages to having female players play in their band, but there's still not a female band. Although in bluegrass, I'm seeing female bands. I'm really
Yeah.
seeing it coming out of, different areas. Again, not LA or not, Nashville. Um, but it's interesting to me. I really, keep my eyes on that.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll weigh in. Having played in all girl bands, all guy bands, and mixed bands over the years. I think some of it is kind of a self-selecting phenomenon, where as I've seen the difference between me as a 25-year-old musician and me as a older musician, what you want to, how you want to live your life and the lifestyle you want to have, those change. Like you can throw a bunch of 50-year-old guys in a van and they will still do this, and they will still like tour and break even, or tour and leave their families for 6 months and party on the road. I mean, this isn't everybody, but it represents a segment, and it's and you can do that with guys and you can keep your costs low. But are a bunch of women over 40 going to want to pile in a van and like couch surf and like, really keep, it's harder. I'd say if you want to be comfortable, and if you're at a point in your life where you also have other commitments and things that you're juggling, whether it's personal, family, or career, I think, you're balancing a lot more. And so as a woman, yeah, everyone's different. You can't make, broad strokes in terms of that. But I think that contributes a lot to like the numbers. I mean, whether you're talking about just men versus the numbers of men and women in music, specifically live music and performance, but also like an all male versus an all female band. I think there's a lot of those variables and factors that contribute to what you're seeing,
Right, right.
It'll be interesting to see if it continues, things continue to open up and become equal in a lot of ways in terms of how many players there are, how many
Yeah.
bass players or guitarists. I mean, I keep thinking of social
More and
media
more.
has changed all that. There's so much great stuff on YouTube or TikTok, or there are lots of videos to inspire kids.
Oh, there's
And
that, yeah, the young girl, the young black bass player who's been, she's been on
Hmm.
since the beginning, and now she's what, 10, maybe 10 at the most.
yeah,
And she's, Steve Vai comes and plays with her, and
Hmm.
all these people. I mean, she's absolutely amazing. She knows everything. She knows all everything from every record. She knows like all the Motown stuff. She knows
Hmm.
every song, who wrote them, who played bass on them, every musician on the record. I mean, this is really this never happened before,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and of course we have the internet, which gets all this out
yeah, it gets a wide reach.
yeah, it gets a wide reach,
Yeah.
I mean, people are learning. I jam with a guy who's learned we jam on Beatles songs, and he's learned McCartney's bass parts, like so far, like over 50 songs, exactly every single note, and which is very intricate. And he's learned all his parts from YouTube. He's
Yeah.
not
Wow.
the band.
That's how my daughter taught herself how to play the piano, the guitar, whatever instrument she wants to play just by watching YouTube videos. So,
Crazy.
I also read, speaking of my research, Aubrey, I know that when Joni Mitchell was, first, coming back to the stage to perform after her brain aneurysm, um, she blew everybody's mind because she got up there and played guitar, like her open tunings, very intricate playing on guitar. She could barely stand, but she was playing guitar. And it turned out she relearned her parts from watching herself on YouTube.
Mm.
oh,
So
wow.
Wow.
really interesting.
Wow.
You know,
It's a really interesting story.
that's my
Well, no, that's fine. And I do want to say, just to support you all, it's interesting to me as a presenter. There's so many great musicians and artists out there, and it's a hard living, and it's not easy. And I really appreciate that you're doing this, and I'm glad that we'll have you at the Bankhead next month in July. I love that we can get a group, especially with a little tie to Livermore too, with Suzanna. I think is really special. We're really looking forward to it. I do want to do one last thing. This will only take a minute. I hope it's okay. We like to do a little game with everybody we interview, and it's called Either Or. And this is easy. It's just a way for us to get to know you better. And I have a series of items. They're just choices, and you have to tell me which one you prefer, right?
Yeah.
And so it starts off super easy. So if I was to say sunrise or sunset, which one is your favorite?
Sunset.
Sunset?
Sunset.
Sunrise.
All right. Susanna's the early riser. Um, the beach or the mountains?
Mountain.
Mountains.
Beach.
Both. I'm a Gemini.
Peter.
You got to pick one.
Should be either or for all.
Geminis don't have to pick one.
All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
otherwise you'll
man.
just get
Okay,
frustrated.
mountains.
Mountains. Okay. It's going to get harder. I'm starting off easy.
No.
Winter or summer?
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, I know.
You got to be more specific with the equator stuff.
Winter or summer in California?
Summer.
Winter.
Yeah. Man, I'm split. Do I have to choose?
All right.
You're not down.
No, we can move on. You're good. You're out. You're off the list. No, I'm just kidding. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
iPhone.
Everybody? Okay. All right. Music question. Digital or vinyl?
Oh boy.
Boy.
I would say vinyl if it were easy, just because the sound is different. Although,
Wait, is this just like for purely the listening experience, or if you could only have one for the rest of your life?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good.
I didn't think about that.
Because like digital's more convenient
Yeah.
and you could have more music to listen to, but vinyl is just more of an experience and it sounds, more authentic.
Yeah, we can't carry the record player,
No, that's true.
I'm ruining this quiz for you.
But there's a lot of stuff on vinyl that will never make it to digital. Because
right?
if you go, there's so many records that have never been digitized. So you miss out on a lot of music if you don't do vinyl.
But do you?
There's
I don't
a
know.
reason it hasn't been digitized.
I don't know.
I find all sorts of fun stuff at
Oh, yeah.
old shops. Okay, another easy one. Cats or dogs? Or maybe not easy.
Both. But I have cat.
I'm allergic.
Okay. Aubrey's like neither.
You guys are
Yeah.
tough.
Hey, cat, dog, imaginary friend.
That's your third choice. Y'all are tough. Okay.
Aubrey's the horse person. She has a
Yeah.
horse.
Oh,
so-
a horse.
Yeah,
You're,
there you go.
you're not allergic
Of
to
course.
horses?
Of course.
Maybe less
Okay.
allergic. I just love them so much. I've tolerated it better.
Got it.
But
Okay.
I like cats because they're less needy, but I like dogs because they're more practical and yeah.
Y'all are so political here. You're just
I
towing the line.
vacuum. I vacuum when Aubrey comes over to rehearse.
That's good. Do you have a dog or cats?
Dog and cats.
Dog and
Which-
cat.
Of course.
Okay. This one might be more for Susanna because I know we didn't even talk about your yoga. Tree pose or mountain pose?
Oh, tree pose.
Tree
Mountain.
pose.
Yeah.
Mountain's easier.
Mountain.
Mountain's easier, but tree
I
is
don't
more
even know what they-
satisfying when you can do it.
Okay. Hey, Sherry. So Gibson or Fender?
Fender.
Fender. That was easy.
Yeah.
But you said you're Tully. Okay. For all of you as musicians, major key or minor key?
Oh,
Oh,
boy.
we just had this discussion this morning. Oh my God, that's very funny.
Yes.
Minor key. I mean, if I look at writing history,
Minor.
kind of asking, aren't you like happy versus sad?
Pretty much.
I guess, yeah,
I'm a major key girl.
maybe.
Major.
But like minor has major chords and major has minor chords. So
Right, but just as far as a feel, it's like we were talking about Beatles versus Stones.
well, I do like
More of a
Stones.
minor, darker
Yeah.
vibe, and Beatles were more major, more so she was a we were just discussing that. She's Stones girl, I'm a Beatles girl. So
Yeah.
Aubrey.
Oh, I'm going with Suzanna on this one.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The book or the movie?
Book.
Book.
Except Lord of the Rings, then movie.
Except Lord of the Rings.
Too long.
Boy, I hate to say it depends on that, but I'd say, God, there's so many movies that are great adaptations of books. It's a tough one for me. Probably book, because you can use your imagination.
Yeah.
You won't be disappointed.
I always like to think when he asks this question, I'm always like, book first, then movie.
Yeah.
And then it,
then you can hate the movie. If you should do the movie
Right.
first, then you like the movie, and then you read the book, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's too hard to disconnect from the movie if you read the book after the movie.
Yeah. I'm just never a fan of the person that's like, oh, I read the book and the book is way better. If I haven't, just, I don't know, the book reader. I like them both, by the way.
We have to go on a case-by-case basis, like Harry
Yeah.
Potter, the books, Lord of the Rings, the movies, and then go from there.
Okay, fair enough.
Game of
Okay.
Thrones, we'll never know how it ended.
Right. Okay,
Right.
this is the most controversial question. Pineapple on pizza or no pineapple on pizza?
Gee.
Pineapple's fine.
Oh,
You're okay with pineapple? I get it. I'm getting a
okay. I
no.
think pineapple and pizza,
Yeah.
cheese and pineapple is a weird combo. I actually like it, but I'll go for just cheese pizza.
me too.
It's caused a lot of fights around here, the pineapple pizza issue.
Oh,
Ru-
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know that.
Pineapple's so easy to
Yeah.
pick off if you don't want it. Give it to the person that likes
Is
it.
this about
Yeah.
our dinner in the green room? Is that?
No, you never know.
Taking notes.
I happen to think it's delicious.
I like it too.
Okay, we're almost done. I got three more here. The next two are songwriter ones. All right, so this is the tough one. Lennon or McCartney?
Ow.
McCartney.
Man, for different reasons. I
Yeah.
mean, McCartney melodies, Lennon edge. That's tough. I don't know if I can answer that one.
I gotta go Lennon.
All right. Now this is a country one. Famous female country songwriters. Dolly or Emmylou?
Oh, can't answer that one either. I love them both. So,
Wait.
Songwriter?
yeah, for different.
I'm going to sound ignorant, though, because in my understanding, Dolly is known much more as a songwriter
Yes, she is.
than
You're
Emmylou,
right.
correct?
It's a good
I don't
point.
know that I'm as familiar with Emmylou in terms of did she write the song or did she not? Like, I know her songs and I like them,
Yep.
but I'm sure a lot of them have been written by other great writers.
So you're saying Dolly?
I'm saying I don't know. I don't have enough information.
Well, it's like we know that Dolly wrote "I Will Always Love You."
Yeah.
I don't know beyond that.
Oh, Jolene.
Oh, right.
Code of Many
Dolly.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yeah.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
She has a
Like
catalog that will
Right.
that will go beyond her death and
I
be
do-
released beyond
Yeah,
her
her
death,
writing
which is-
too is that.
I do appreciate
Yeah.
how much thought you're putting into this, by the way.
Right. Well, next. But
This is the last one.
about
last
Dolly
one.
We made it.
Her songs
This is the easiest one.
This is the-
translate to
This-
pop, and I
This
don't
one's easy.
know about Emmylou.
Yeah.
Although,
All right. Final question. Livermore on July 25th, which is when Mustangs of the West will be where they will be in Livermore, or anywhere else in the world on July 25th.
oh,
That's easy.
that's an easy one for us.
Everyone.
Livermore.
Yes.
All right. Livermore on July 25th.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, all three of you. Really looking forward to seeing you next month. And appreciate your time. And good luck with everything. And can't wait to see you in Livermore. You're off the hook.
We'll look for that
Thank you.
pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll bring it.
In the green room.
Nice
Ruth
talking
and I will
to
be
For
doing
having
it.
us, we're pretty excited to be there.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care, y'all.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining us for Beyond the Stage featuring Suzanna, Sherry, and Aubrey from Mustangs of the West. They will be performing here live at the Bankhead on Friday, July 25th at 8 p.m. You can get your tickets now at livermorearts.org or by calling the box office at 925-373-6800. And just so you know, we post our podcasts on the second Thursday of the month, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any other episode that we've done. We'd love to hear your favorite parts. Leave a comment, ask a question, or give us a review on our social media, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we may even read it live on our next podcast. You'll find us on all the socials at Livermore Valley Arts. And remember to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ruth Eggerman.
And I'm Chris Carter.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
One step closer to